Alright, so now let's continue building this chart. And so what do we see on a X-bar chart? Well, typically we see the upper control limit, the lower control limit, sometimes the average. It's actually handy to have that on there as we're reading the charts, but then also our data points, which would be the average of these samples. Once again, that's why it's an X-bar chart, because it's talking about the averages. And so what we're going to do is we're going to end up putting together a scatter chart. And we're going to start with just all markers, because we're going to change this to a combination so we can show markers and lines, but let's deal with that later. So this should be pretty easy because we have the X value all the way here on the right corner, which is the samples. So we should just be able to grab this and go, okay, let's do a XY scatter chart. And as we can see from the preview, that looks relatively what it should look like, but we're going to fix that. So we'll just hit scatter. And now let's move this, go right click, move chart. We're going to make it its own sheet to make it really big so we can take a look at it. So there's a lot of work that we need to do to this chart. And the first one is we have entirely too much white space. And so you'll notice this is all really tight in here. So it doesn't really give us a good handle. So what we're going to do is a couple things. Let's shorten out the axes a little bit. First of all, we only go 12 hours here. So we'll format axis, and we're just going to put that to 12. And then we'll do the same thing over here, and we're going to change this. And so let's put the limits between, let's see, minimum 14, and then we'll take our maximum. Our maximum only runs to about 17. Actually, there should be one at, so let's run that to 18 to keep it nice and set. So 17 to 18, yeah, I knew there was a data point that was hiding there. Okay, so the next thing is, before we start fixing all these little dots that are maybe kind of confusing, let's make this a real chart now. So we're going to say this is an X-bar control chart, so we'll give it a name. We need axis titles because nobody's going to have any idea what any of this stuff means. So we'll go over here to axis titles, we'll put them both in. So over here, this is going to be average weight. And the important thing to remember is we've got to have units, especially here, because nobody's going to know what the average weight is. That is the average weight in ounces. And that somehow did not get, let's just move it up here so it looks kind of in the middle. There we go. We'll come down here, this axis title, this is sample number. And for here, because we know that we're taking it by the hour if we want, we can say, we could put hourly. That one's not that important, but it may or may not help things out. Now we got 4 different series here. So let's fix that because I'm not quite sure what each of these are, right? Because I'm looking at it and it's like, wow, these are kind of weird. So what I want to do is if I right click on here and go to select data, this brings up just a different kind of selection for all these different things. So we've got 4 series. They're all going to be based on the very first column being the X value, everything else is the Y value. That's how Excel initially populates this stuff. It goes, okay, here's my X values, let's put in my Y values. So series 1 should be this one here with sample. If we go to edit and we come here, see, there's our X values, there's our Y values. So what we want to do is we want to give it a series name. And so if we just pick that cell, that way if we change the cell, the chart will update, and that's what we want, and hit OK. See, we go back, now the blue dots are sample. That's great. Let's do it with these other ones here. So we're going to edit, and so this would be the mean. We'll go to series 3, and you can see it's changing the names. That'll be the upper control limit, and then we'll go here and we'll edit that, and then over here this will be the lower control limit. Okay, so now we can see we've got the color codes. They match up now, so we know what those things are. And actually, if we really want to be technically correct, this should be upper control limit, and we'll put in a lowercase x, and lower control limit, lowercase x. because these are based on the X bar. These are based on the averages. We do have other types of upper and lower control limits, so we're just going to separate that out. Now, so if I go back to my chart here, you'll see, oh look, that all changed because we did tag that. Okay, so the last thing as we're looking at this, these dots are kind of confusing because the upper lower control limit, the means are just references, not data points. So let's change those over. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up here, we're going to right click, and we're going to go to change chart type. Now, as you notice, all the way down here we got this thing called combo, and this is going to allow us to do different things. Now you can see it immediately set it to clustered columns and then lines. No, that's not what we want. I want to change my sample. We're going to go back to our XY scatter. I want to leave that as points. For my mean, I just want to go and we're going to go put that in. And I'm going to use the same XY scatter terminology because we do have X and Y values. I don't want to switch to lines because a line and XY scatter are put together differently. So I'm just going to go scatter with smooth lines. And it's just going to make a line. And then here I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come down, scatter with smooth lines, and then scatter with smooth lines. One thing you have to, did I grab the right one? Yeah, XY scatter smooth lines. Now one thing you'll notice is it popped these for secondary axes. You want to take those off because that would put a second axis on and it would change where things are going to fall. And then we'll hit OK. And unfortunately, I didn't think about it. It was going to change the axis for us. So let's just change those back. So format axis, we wanted this to go from 14 to 18. And then over here, we want to format this axis, and we want to take this from 0, we want to end this at 12. And we could kind of end it here, but one thing we might want to do is, oh, you know what, the upper and the lower control limit are kind of the same thing, so let's just change that color. Go right, format data series, come over here, and instead of being, oh, what should we make it? Should we give it some dashes or something? No, we'll leave those there. I'm going to make this one gray so it matches the one above that. So there, our control limits are now, they're both gray. One's a little bit darker than the other, but that's fine. And then the mean, let's format that data series. We can leave it as orange. Let's put it as long dashes. Okay, so there we go. So we have the mean, we have the upper and lower control limit. And as we can look at these things, we can see that the process, especially the 10th, 11th, and 12th hour, is out of control. You know, up here it's fine. We got it's bouncing in between the upper and controller, but we've got a couple of them that are being underfilled and one set that's being overfilled. So there's definitely something to take a look at. Something funky is going on here in hours 10, 11, 12. Okay, and so that's how we can put together an X-bar chart within Excel. Now, if there are any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.